Excuse me. What do you think you're doing in my building? Marcus Bennett's voice cut through the marble lobby of Apex Corporate Solutions like a knife. His eyes locked onto Diana Harper, a black woman in her early 40s, carrying a leather portfolio and walking toward the executive elevators. She turned slowly, her expression neutral. I'm here for the 9:30 board meeting. Marcus laughed, a sharp, cruel sound that echoed off the glass walls. At 38, he'd spent 6 years clawing his way up to regional operations manager. He wasn't about to let some random woman waltz into executive territory on his watch. The board meeting? He stepped closer, his chest puffed with authority. Lady, I don't know what kind of scam you're running, but it ends right here. Diana checked her watch. 9:17 a.m., 13 minutes, she said quietly. 13 minutes until what? Until the meeting starts. Until everything changes. Marcus grabbed the 20-ounce Pepsi from his desk. Still cold, still full. Security guards shifted nervously near the entrance. Junior employees froze mid-conversation, sensing something terrible about to unfold. You people, Marcus said, his voice dripping with contempt, always think you can fake your way into places you don't belong. Well, not today. Without warning, he raised the bottle and poured. The soda cascaded over Diana's head in a deliberate, humiliating stream. Dark liquid soaked her hair, ruined her $600 cream blazer, and splashed onto the white marble floor. Papers from her portfolio scattered, expensive contracts floating in sticky puddles. 23 employees and visitors stood frozen. Phones emerged from pockets like weapons. Cameras rolled. Diana remained perfectly still. No screaming. No cursing. Just eerie, dignified silence as cola dripped from her natural curls onto her designer heels. She reached into her ruined blazer pocket and pulled out her phone. With steady hands, she began photographing everything. The puddles, the scattered contracts, Marcus's sneering face, the shocked bystanders. 9:18, she murmured, checking her watch. 12 minutes. Marcus adjusted his tie, satisfaction radiating from every pore. He owned this moment. Or so he thought. Have you ever watched someone's racism destroy them so completely that it changed an entire company forever? Asterisk asterisk. If you've ever been judged by people like Marcus who think they own spaces you have every right to be in, hit that subscribe button right now. Only racist bullies and power-hungry manipulators won't. Let's stand together against people who weaponize authority. Document folders hit the floor with wet slaps. A $40,000 merger proposal floated in a brown puddle. Employee non-disclosure agreements dissolved into sticky pulp. Marcus's assistant, Jennifer Kim, a Korean-American woman in her late 20s, stepped forward cautiously. Sir, maybe we should verify her credentials before. Are you questioning my judgment, Jennifer? Marcus snapped. Jennifer's face flushed. She'd worked under Marcus for 18 months, long enough to know that questioning him meant weeks of retaliation. Impossible deadlines. Public humiliation in meetings. Passive-aggressive performance reviews. She stepped back, silent. Dwayne Mitchell, the black security guard, approached slowly. At 52, he'd seen enough corporate drama to recognize when something was very, very wrong. The woman standing there, covered in soda, radiated the kind of calm that came from absolute confidence. Mr. Bennett, Dwayne said carefully, maybe we should call upstairs and confirm her appointment. I don't need to confirm anything, Marcus replied. Use your eyes, Dwayne. Does she look like she belongs in an executive board meeting? The racist implication hung in the air like poison gas. Diana knelt gracefully, gathering soggy documents. Her movements were methodical, professional, a woman accustomed to crisis management under pressure. Senior analyst Robert Harrison emerged from the coffee station, drawn by the commotion. He'd been with Apex for 12 years, long enough to recognize every executive by sight. The woman on the floor looked vaguely familiar, but he couldn't place her. Marcus, what's going on? Robert asked. Just handling a security breach, Marcus said loudly, ensuring everyone could hear. Some scam artist trying to infiltrate the executive floor. Diana looked up, water droplets still falling from her hair. I'm not a scam artist. I'm Diana Harper, and I'm here for the quarterly board meeting. I have proper authorization. Diana Harper? Marcus laughed again. Never heard of you. And trust me, I know everyone important in this company. 9:20, Diana said softly. 10 minutes. Regional HR representative Christine Moore, a white woman in her mid-40s, clicked across the marble floor in expensive heels. She'd been watching from the second-floor balcony, and the optics of this situation were terrible. "What seems to be the problem?" Christine asked, positioning herself beside Marcus. "No problem," Marcus replied smoothly. "Just removing an unauthorized visitor." Christine studied Diana, the expensive briefcase, the ruined designer clothes, the professional demeanor despite being soaked in Pepsi. Something felt wrong about this entire scenario. "Ma'am," Christine said, "do you have identification?" Diana reached into her briefcase and produced a laminated badge. "Executive clearance. All access. Valid through December 2025. Christine's eyebrows rose as she examined it. The badge looked legitimate, proper holographic seal, magnetic strip, current company logo. Marcus snatched it from her hands. "Obviously fake. These are easy to counterfeit." "That badge came from the CEO's office," Diana said calmly. "You can verify it with Janet Reynolds, the executive administrator." "The CEO's office?" Marcus's voice dripped with skepticism. "Right. And I'm sure you have the CEO on speed dial too." "Actually," Diana pulled out her phone, "I do." The screen showed a contact labeled Richard CEO. Several recent call logs. Text message threads discussing quarterly reports and merger negotiations. Marcus grabbed the phone from Diana's hand. "These are fabricated. Photoshopped. I've seen this scam before. People fake relationships with executives to gain access to proprietary information." "That's my personal property," Diana said, her voice remaining steady. "I'd like it back." "You'll get it back when security escorts you out," Marcus replied. More employees had gathered now. 37 people crowded around the lobby, watching the spectacle unfold. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed entertained. A few were recording discreetly. Junior marketing coordinator Lisa Martinez whispered to her colleague, "Should someone call the actual CEO's office?" "And contradict Marcus?" her colleague whispered back. "Career suicide." Diana remained on her knees, separating salvageable documents from ruined ones. A contract for a $50 million acquisition. Employee equity agreements. Confidential financial projections, all soaked in Pepsi. 9:22, she announced. 8 minutes. Dwayne Mitchell couldn't shake his unease. In 28 years of corporate security, he'd developed a sixth sense for when situations were about to explode. This woman's calm composure, her expensive accessories, her complete lack of panic. These weren't the behaviors of a con artist. "Mr. Bennett," Dwayne tried again, "I really think we should verify." "Dwayne, if you can't follow simple instructions, I'll find a security guard who can." Marcus's threat was clear. Dwayne had a daughter in college. A mortgage. 17 months until retirement. He couldn't afford to lose this job. He stepped back silent. Diana's phone buzzed in Marcus's hand. The screen lit up, Richard CEO calling. Marcus stared at it, uncertainty flickering across his face for the first time. "That's probably him wondering where his quarterly reports are," Diana said calmly. "The ones currently floating in that puddle of Pepsi." Marcus declined the call. The lobby fell silent except for the hum of air conditioning and the drip of soda from Diana's hair onto marble. Christine Moore pulled out her own phone, pretending to check emails while actually Googling Diana Harper Apex Corporate. Her screen filled with results. Forbes profile, Diana Harper, self-made billionaire, revolutionizes corporate consulting. LinkedIn, founder and CEO Harper Acquisitions Group. Business Insider, the woman who quietly bought 37 companies in 5 years. Christine's face went completely white. "Marcus," she said quietly, "we need to talk. Privately. Right now. I'm handling this situation, Christine. I don't need." "Marcus." Her voice carried a warning. "Now." But it was too late. The executive elevator chimed. Polished steel doors slid open with mechanical precision. Richard Morrison, CEO of Apex Corporate Solutions for 9 years, stepped out. His $4,000 suit was impeccable. His expression was confused as he surveyed the crowd. Then he saw Diana. On the floor. Soaked in Pepsi. Surrounded by ruined documents. "Diana?" His voice carried across the silent lobby. "What happened?" The transformation was instantaneous. Marcus's confident sneer dissolved into pure terror. Christine stepped backward so quickly she nearly tripped over her own heels. Robert's coffee cup slipped from nerveless fingers, shattering on marble. Diana stood gracefully, cola still dripping from her blazer. "Hello, Richard. Sorry I'm late. There was a small security issue." Richard's confusion shifted to recognition, then to ice-cold fury. "Someone explain to me why Diana Harper, majority shareholder and owner of this company, is standing in my lobby covered in soda." The words hit like a physical shockwave. Majority shareholder, owner of this company. Marcus's legs seemed to be failing him. The confident regional manager who'd been so certain of his authority now looked like he might vomit. I didn't." His voice came out in a whisper. Diana brushed Pepsi droplets from her blazer. "You didn't know? Or you didn't care? Because I'm curious which assumption led you to pour a drink on someone without verifying who they were." Richard moved closer to Diana, his protective instincts flaring. He'd worked with her for 3 years, ever since Harper Acquisitions had purchased majority shares in Apex. She was brilliant, demanding, and absolutely committed to running ethical companies. "Diana, are you hurt? Do you need medical attention?" "I'm fine, Richard. Just documenting everything." She showed him her phone, dozens of photos capturing the incident from multiple angles. Richard's jaw tightened as he scrolled through the images. Who did this? 37 pairs of eyes turned toward Marcus Bennett, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the marble floor. 9:27, Diana checked her watch. 3 minutes until the board meeting. "Should we postpone, or would you prefer to handle this situation first?" Richard made a decision that would reshape Apex Corporate Solutions forever. "The board meeting is postponed. We have much bigger issues to address." Comment: Everyone deserves respect. If you can't stand entitled managers like Marcus who abuse their power, let's show that authority doesn't give anyone the right to humiliate others. Only bullies and racists stay silent. Richard Morrison's voice could have frozen hellfire. "Marcus Bennett. My office. Now." "Sir, I can explain," Marcus's voice cracked. "You can explain in front of the entire executive team." Richard pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. Within seconds, every department head in the building received an emergency alert. Code red: all senior leadership to executive conference room. Immediate. Mandatory. The crowd of employees had swelled to nearly 50 people. Word spread through Apex Corporate Solutions like wildfire. Someone had attacked the owner. The actual owner. In the lobby. On camera. Jennifer Kim stood frozen near her desk, her mind racing. She'd watched Marcus humiliate Diana. She'd stayed silent when she could have verified credentials. Her complicity felt like concrete in her stomach. Dwayne Mitchell removed his security cap, wiping sweat from his forehead. 28 years of clean service, and he just failed to protect the company owner because he'd been too afraid of a middle manager. Christine Moore was already calculating legal exposure in her head. Assault. Battery. Discrimination. Hostile work environment. They were looking at millions in potential damages, if Diana chose to sue. Diana calmly gathered her ruined documents, separating salvageable pages from destroyed ones. Her movements were methodical, professional, as if being drenched in soda was a minor inconvenience rather than a humiliating assault. "Ma'am," Dwayne approached hesitantly, "I am so sorry. I should have verified your credentials immediately. I failed you." Diana looked up at the security guard, seeing genuine remorse in his eyes. "Mr. Mitchell, you were put in an impossible position by someone who weaponized his authority. That's not your fault." The grace in her response made Dwayne's eyes water. Lisa Martinez, the junior marketing coordinator who'd been recording discreetly, stepped forward. "Mrs. Harper, I have video evidence of everything that happened. If you need it for whatever comes next." Diana smiled for the first time since entering the building. "Thank you, Lisa. Please send that to my personal email and Richard's." "Already done, ma'am." The executive elevator chimed again. This time, 6 senior leaders emerged: Chief Operating Officer Patricia Hayes, Chief Financial Officer James Chin, Head of Human Resources Monica Williams, General Counsel David Rodriguez, VP of Regional Operations Karen Foster, and Head of Corporate Security Thomas Reed. Their expressions ranged from confused to horrified as they took in the scene. Diana Harper, the woman who'd purchased controlling interest in their company 3 years ago, stood soaked in Pepsi while Marcus Bennett looked like he was facing a firing squad. What in God's name happened here? Patricia Hayes demanded. Richard gestured to the puddles of soda, the scattered documents, the crowd of witnesses with phones still recording. Marcus poured a drink on Diana, refused to verify her credentials, called her a scam artist, prevented her from reaching the board meeting. The assembled executives exchanged glances that spoke volumes. This wasn't just a PR disaster. It was a legal, financial, and operational catastrophe. Monica Williams, head of HR, immediately pulled out her tablet. Mrs. Harper, I need to document this incident officially. Are you injured? Do you require medical attention? I'm uninjured, Monica. Just wet and disappointed. Disappointed? Marcus found his voice, desperation making him bold. I was protecting this company. She didn't look like. Didn't look like what? Diana's voice remained calm but steel-edged every word. Finish that sentence, Marcus. Didn't look like what exactly? The lobby fell silent. Marcus's mouth opened and closed. He'd been about to say something catastrophically racist and everyone knew it. That's what I thought, Diana said quietly. David Rodriguez, the general counsel, was already calculating damages. Assault and battery minimum $50,000. Discrimination lawsuit, $500,000 to $2 million. Reputation damage to the company incalculable. Potential shareholder lawsuits if this affected stock price, millions more. We need to move this to the executive floor, Richard announced. Everyone involved, conference room 3. Now. The procession to the elevator was surreal. Diana walked with quiet dignity, still dripping Pepsi. Richard stayed protectively close. Marcus followed like a man walking to his execution. The senior executives formed a grim entourage. Jennifer Kim watched them disappear into the elevator, then turned to her computer and began typing her resignation letter. She'd been complicit through silence. She couldn't work here anymore. But her computer chimed with a direct message from Diana Harper. Jennifer, please don't resign. I saw you try to intervene. We'll talk later. Jennifer stared at the message in disbelief. How did Diana even know her name? The executive conference room on the 32nd floor had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The $75,000 Italian marble table could seat 20 people comfortably. Today it felt claustrophobic with just 10. Diana sat at the head of the table, her table in her company, still wearing her soda-stained blazer. She'd refused Richard's offer of a change of clothes. I want everyone to see exactly what happened. Marcus sat at the far end, flanked by Monica Williams and David Rodriguez. His career was ending and everyone in the room knew it. Richard opened the meeting. Let's establish facts. Diana, please describe what happened. Diana's voice remained steady. I arrived at 9:17 a.m. for our 9:30 board meeting. I was carrying quarterly reports and merger documents. Marcus Bennett confronted me in the lobby, accused me of being a scam artist, refused to verify my credentials, and poured approximately 20 ounces of Pepsi over my head while making racially motivated assumptions about my right to be here. Racially motivated? Marcus protested. I never said anything about race. You said you people, Diana replied calmly. You told Dwayne Mitchell to use his eyes to determine whether I belonged in executive spaces. You dismissed my credentials as fake based entirely on my appearance. What conclusion should I draw? Patricia Hayes, the COO, leaned forward. Marcus, is this account accurate? I was protecting the company. We've had issues with corporate espionage and she didn't look like... He stopped himself again. Didn't look like what? Patricia pressed. The silence was damning. Monica Williams opened her tablet. I need to disclose something to this group. This isn't Marcus's first incident. Richard's eyebrows rose. Explain. In the past 14 months, my department has received 9 formal complaints about Marcus Bennett's management style. 7 involved discrimination allegations, 5 racial, 2 gender-based. All were marked as resolved through mediation. Diana's expression didn't change, but her eyes hardened. Resolved how? Monica's face flushed with shame. The complainants were offered transfers to different departments or small settlements with NDAs. Company policy was to avoid escalation. Company policy, Diana repeated slowly, was to protect the harasser instead of the victims. That policy is about to change, Richard said firmly. James Chin, the CFO, cleared his throat. We need to discuss financial exposure. If Mrs. Harper chooses to sue. I'm not going to sue, Diana interrupted. Relief flooded several faces around the table. I'm going to do something far more effective, Diana continued. I'm going to dismantle the systems that allowed this to happen. Thomas Reed, head of corporate security, spoke up. Mrs. Harper, I've reviewed our security protocols. Marcus had no authority to detain you or confiscate your property. He violated at least 6 company policies. And yet he felt completely confident doing it, Diana observed, which suggests a culture where middle managers believe they can act without accountability. Karen Foster, VP of Regional Operations and technically Marcus's supervisor, shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Harper, I take full responsibility for Marcus's actions. He reported to me and I failed to address the warning signs. What warning signs? Diana asked. Karen pulled up her laptop. 18 months ago, Marcus's department had employee satisfaction scores of 4.2 out of 5. Today they're at 2.8. Turnover in his division is 47% annually, nearly triple the company average. Exit interviews consistently mention hostile work environment and cultural insensitivity. The data painted a devastating picture. How was this allowed to continue? Richard demanded. Marcus's division generates $67 million in annual revenue, Karen admitted. Leadership prioritized financial performance over cultural concerns. Diana stood slowly, walking to the windows. Her reflection showed a successful black woman in ruined designer clothes, a visual representation of how easily dignity could be stripped away by unchecked authority. Here's what's going to happen, Diana said, her voice carrying quiet authority. Marcus Bennett is terminated immediately. For cause. No severance, no references, complete forfeiture of stock options and benefits. Marcus's face went chalk white. His $143,000 salary, his $31,000 annual bonus, his retirement savings tied to company stock, gone. Mrs. Harper, please, Marcus's voice broke. I have a mortgage, car payments, kids in private school. You should have considered that before you poured soda on someone you assumed was beneath you, Diana replied without turning around. Consequences. Hit that like button if you believe people like Marcus deserve to lose everything when they abuse their power and humiliate others. Show that racism and discrimination should cost careers, not just apologies. Only enablers of bullies scroll past. Monica Williams typed rapidly on her tablet. Official termination effective immediately. I'll have security escort you from the building within the hour. Karen Foster, Diana continued, you're suspended for 30 days without pay pending a full review of your oversight failures. If you want to keep your position, you'll spend that time developing a comprehensive plan to rebuild your division's culture. Karen nodded, her face pale but accepting. She'd failed as a leader. She deserved consequences. Christine Moore, regional HR representative, is also suspended pending investigation into why 9 discrimination complaints were buried instead of addressed. Thomas Reed made notes. I'll notify her immediately. Furthermore, Diana turned to face the room, every employee who witnessed this morning's incident will be interviewed individually. Those who tried to intervene will be recognized. Those who remained silent will undergo mandatory bias training. Those who participated or encouraged Marcus's behavior will be terminated. David Rodriguez looked up sharply. You're talking about potentially firing dozens of people. I'm talking about establishing that this company values human dignity over operational convenience, Diana corrected. How many people do you think we'll fire? David consulted his notes from the lobby. Based on preliminary review, probably 4 to 6 employees actively encouraged Marcus or made discriminatory comments. Another 12 watched without intervening. The ones who watched get training and probation, Diana said. The ones who participated get terminated. Clear? Crystal clear. Richard leaned back in his chair, watching Diana operate with surgical precision. This was why she built a billion-dollar empire. She didn't just punish individuals, she rebuilt systems. Monica, I want a complete audit of every discrimination complaint filed in the past 5 years, Diana continued. Especially ones marked as resolved through mediation. I want to know how many employees we silenced with NDAs and settlements. Monica nodded, already making notes. Patricia, I want revised authority protocols by end of week. No manager below director level should have power to detain, confiscate property, or make unilateral security decisions. Patricia added it to her task list. James, I want financial analysis of what our tolerance of discrimination has cost us. Calculate turnover expenses, settlement payments, lost productivity, and opportunity costs of talented employees who left because of hostile culture. James's fingers flew across his laptop keyboard. Diana's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and smiled slightly. Interesting. The video from this morning has 127,000 views on LinkedIn. Lisa Martinez's post is going viral. The executives exchanged nervous glances. Viral meant media attention. Media attention meant shareholder questions. Shareholder questions meant stock price volatility. Let it spread, Diana said calmly. Transparency is our friend here. We're not hiding from this. We're owning it and fixing it. Marcus had been silent for several minutes, staring at the table. Now he looked up, desperation in his eyes. Mrs. Harper, I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Please, I'm begging you. You're not sorry you did it, Diana interrupted. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry the woman you humiliated turned out to own the company. If I'd been an actual scam artist, you'd still think you were a hero. The accuracy of her assessment silenced Marcus completely. Does anyone have questions about the actions we're taking? Diana asked the room. Thomas Reed raised his hand. Mrs. Harper, what do you want done with the security footage from this morning? Preserve it as evidence. Make it available to any employee who requests it. Also compile all security footage of Marcus's interactions with employees over the past year. I want to see if there are patterns we missed. Thomas made notes. I'll have that ready by tomorrow. One more thing, Diana said. Jennifer Kim, Marcus's assistant. I want her promoted to interim regional operations manager while we search for Karen's permanent replacement. Several people looked surprised. She tried to intervene this morning, Diana explained. She suggested verifying credentials before escalating. Marcus silenced her. That's exactly the kind of moral courage we should be promoting, not punishing. Karen Foster spoke quietly. Jennifer is exceptionally qualified. She's been carrying Marcus's division for 18 months. He took credit for her work. Then it's time she got proper recognition, Diana replied. The meeting continued for another 40 minutes. Action items were assigned. Timelines were established. Accountability measures were implemented. By the time they finished, Apex Corporate Solutions had a roadmap for complete cultural transformation. Marcus was escorted from the building at 11:47 a.m. by Dwayne Mitchell, who performed the task with professional courtesy despite what had happened. Security footage showed Marcus collecting personal items from his office. Photos of his family, awards he'd won, certificates he'd earned. All of it is meaningless now. As he walked through the lobby for the last time, 53 employees watched in complete silence. Some felt satisfaction. Others felt fear, realizing that authority without character was just temporary power waiting to collapse. Jennifer Kim stood at her desk, reading the email officially promoting her to interim manager. She tried to do the right thing. For once, that had been rewarded instead of punished. Lisa Martinez's LinkedIn post had reached 340,000 views. Comments flooded in from current and former Apex employees sharing their own stories of discrimination, harassment, and hostile work environments that leadership had ignored. The reckoning had begun. But Diana wasn't finished. Not even close. She stood in Richard's office, still wearing her ruined blazer, looking out over the city she'd conquered through brilliance, strategy, and relentless focus. They think this was about revenge, she said quietly. Richard joined her at the window. Wasn't it? Revenge is personal. This is systematic. I'm going to rebuild Apex into a company where what happened to me this morning becomes impossible. That's ambitious. I didn't build a billion-dollar empire through modest goals. Diana's phone buzzed with a news alert. Her incident had been picked up by CNN Business. The headline read, "Billionaire owner assaulted at her own company, what it reveals about corporate culture." The story was spreading beyond business circles into mainstream media. Stock price impact? Diana asked. Richard checked his phone. down 1.8% in the past hour. Investors are nervous about PR fallout. It'll recover, Diana said confidently. Especially when we announce the changes we're implementing. Ethical companies outperform discriminatory ones. The data proves it. She was right, of course. She usually was. By end of business that day, 6 employees had been terminated for participating in or encouraging Marcus's behavior. 14 others were placed on mandatory probation with bias training requirements. Christine Moore, the HR representative who'd helped Marcus, was demoted and transferred to a non-supervisory role. Karen Foster began her 30-day suspension, already working on cultural reconstruction plans. And Diana Harper, still wearing her soda-stained blazer, prepared to address all 847 Apex Corporate Solutions employees in a company-wide video conference. The woman who'd been humiliated that morning was about to transform an entire organization. Justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about prevention. If you stand against workplace racism and believe companies should protect employees instead of protecting discriminatory managers, smash that subscribe button. Only people who enable Marcus-type bullies won't subscribe. Show where you stand. At 4:47 p.m., Diana Harper stood before a camera in Apex Corporate Solutions' main conference room. Behind her, the company logo gleamed on a pristine white wall. She'd finally changed clothes, a crisp navy suit that radiated authority. But on the table beside her sat her ruined blazer, still stained with Pepsi. She'd kept it visible deliberately. 847 employees across 12 regional offices watched their screens as the company-wide video conference began. Word had spread about the lobby incident. Everyone knew something massive was happening. "Good afternoon," Diana began, her voice calm and clear. "My name is Diana Harper. I'm the majority shareholder and owner of Apex Corporate Solutions. This morning, one of your managers poured soda on me in the lobby because he made racist assumptions about my right to be in this building." The bluntness shocked people into silence. "I'm not sharing this for sympathy," Diana continued. "I'm sharing it because what happened to me happens to employees every single day in workplaces across America. The difference is that I had the power to do something about it. Most people don't." She gestured to the stained blazer. "This represents a failure. Not just Marcus Bennett's failure, but leadership's failure. We created systems that protected harassers instead of victims. We prioritized revenue over respect. We allowed discrimination to flourish as long as it stayed quiet." In the Chicago regional office, former employees who'd been silenced with NDAs watched the live stream on their personal devices. Tears streamed down faces as someone finally acknowledged what they'd endured. Effective immediately, Apex Corporate Solutions is implementing comprehensive cultural transformation, Diana announced. Marcus Bennett has been terminated. Several other employees who participated in this morning's incident have also been terminated. This is not negotiable. She pulled up a presentation on the screen behind her. Here's what's changing. First, anonymous reporting system. Any employee can report discrimination, harassment, or hostile behavior through a third-party managed app. Reports will be investigated within 24 hours. Zero tolerance for retaliation. Jennifer Kim, watching from her new office, felt hope bloom in her chest for the first time in 18 months. Second, mandatory bias training for every employee, including me, including Richard, including every executive. This isn't a one-time seminar. This is quarterly ongoing education about recognizing and preventing discrimination. Third, diverse hiring mandates. Within 12 months, our leadership demographics will reflect the communities we serve. We're partnering with HBCUs, Hispanic-serving institutions, and diversity recruitment firms. In Atlanta, recent graduate Shanice Williams watched the live stream with growing excitement. She'd applied to Apex twice and been rejected both times despite stellar qualifications. Maybe now things would be different. Fourth, financial consequences for discrimination. Any manager found to have created hostile environments will face immediate suspension, potential termination, and personal liability for damages. Your authority comes with responsibility. The message was clear. The old way of operating was dead. Fifth, victim support programs. Employees who experience discrimination will receive paid leave, legal support, and counseling services at company expense. We protect victims, not perpetrators. Diana paused, letting the information sink in. Some of you are wondering if this is sustainable, if we can afford these changes. She pulled up financial data. Last year, we spent $2.3 million on turnover costs, settlement payments, and lost productivity related to hostile work environments. These new programs will cost $890,000 annually. We're not spending more. We're spending smarter. The business case was irrefutable. I know some of you witnessed this morning's incident and stayed silent. I understand fear of retaliation. But silence enables abuse. So here's my promise. Starting today, speaking up is rewarded. Staying silent when you see discrimination is no longer acceptable. Regional Manager Tom Phillips in the Houston office shifted uncomfortably. He'd watched 3 employees get harassed by their supervisor last month and said nothing. That wouldn't fly anymore. We're also reviewing every discrimination complaint filed in the past 5 years, especially ones marked as resolved through mediation. If you were pressured to accept a settlement and sign an NDA, we're releasing you from that obligation. Tell your story. We're listening now. The legal implications were enormous, but Diana didn't care. Truth mattered more than liability protection. Finally, I want to address something directly. Diana's voice softened slightly. To every employee of color, every woman, every LGBTQ+ person, every individual who's felt invisible or unwelcome here, I see you. Your experiences matter. Your voices matter. This company failed you, and I'm committed to earning back your trust. In the Detroit office, systems analyst Marcus Johnson, not related to the CEO, wiped tears from his eyes. In 6 years at Apex, no executive had ever acknowledged his experiences as a black man in a predominantly white company. Transformation starts today, Diana concluded. It won't be perfect. We'll make mistakes, but we'll make them while trying to build something better. Thank you. The video conference ended. For 10 seconds, silence. Then the internal messaging system exploded with activity. 847 employees processing what they just witnessed. Some celebrated. Others panicked. A few began updating their resumes, realizing they couldn't survive in an ethical workplace. Richard Morrison stood beside Diana as the camera crew packed up equipment. That was the most honest executive communication I've ever seen. Honesty is the only foundation for real change, Diana replied. Her phone buzzed. The first anonymous report through the new system had just been submitted. Then another. Then 5 more. Years of buried discrimination complaints were finally surfacing. 72 hours later, the viral impact had exceeded anyone's predictions. Lisa Martinez's original LinkedIn post had reached 4.7 million views. It had been shared on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Hashtag Apex Accountability was trending nationally. But something unexpected was happening. Instead of destroying Apex's reputation, Diana's transparent response was being celebrated as a model for corporate accountability. Business schools requested permission to use the case study. Other companies reached out asking for consultation on implementing similar reforms. CNN interviewed Diana on their primetime business show. Mrs. Harper, the anchor asked, some critics say you overreacted. That terminating multiple employees over one incident was excessive. Diana's expression didn't waver. This wasn't one incident. It was the culmination of years of enabling discrimination. Marcus Bennett felt comfortable pouring soda on a black woman because the culture had taught him there would be no consequences. I'm simply correcting that lesson. The interview clip went viral. 2.3 million views in 24 hours. Apex's stock price, which had initially dropped 1.8%, rebounded to up 3.4% as investors recognized that ethical companies attracted better talent, generated stronger customer loyalty, and avoided costly lawsuits. Marcus Bennett's personal reckoning was far more brutal. The video of his assault on Diana had been viewed 8.9 million times. His name was permanently associated with racist workplace behavior. Despite sending 127 job applications, he'd received 0 interviews. Hiring managers Googled his name and immediately rejected him. His wife filed for divorce after seeing the video. His children faced bullying at their private school. His friends stopped returning calls. The consequences he'd never considered were destroying everything he'd built. Marcus's LinkedIn profile, once professionally polished, now featured hundreds of comments condemning his behavior. He tried deleting his account 3 times, but the internet never forgets. Meanwhile, the employees he'd terrorized were thriving. Jennifer Kim's promotion to regional operations manager became permanent. Within 60 days, her division's employee satisfaction scores jumped from 2.8 to 4.6 out of 5. Turnover dropped from 47% to 9%. Revenue increased by $8.3 million as talented employees stopped fleeing hostile environments. Dwayne Mitchell received a formal commendation and $10,000 bonus for his years of professional service. Diana personally thanked him for trying to de-escalate the situation despite pressure from Marcus. Lisa Martinez was promoted to Senior Marketing Coordinator with a $22,000 raise. Her documentation of the incident had provided crucial evidence. More importantly, her moral courage was rewarded. The 4 employees terminated for participating in Marcus's harassment struggled to find new positions. Their involvement in a viral discrimination incident made them unemployable in professional settings. Justice wasn't just about punishment, it was about restoration. Comment: character over comfort. If you believe companies should fire discriminatory employees even when it's difficult or expensive, let's show that protecting racist managers is never worth the cost. Only people who enable workplace abuse stay silent. 6 months after the incident, Apex Corporate Solutions looked like a completely different company. The diversity audit revealed stunning changes. Leadership demographics had shifted from 73% white to 54% white, 23% black, 15% Latino, 8% Asian and other minorities. The executive team now included voices that had been systematically excluded for decades. The anonymous reporting system had received 247 submissions. 83 resulted in formal investigations. 19 employees were terminated for creating hostile environments. 14 were suspended and required to complete intensive bias training. But the system also revealed positive stories. 64 reports celebrated managers who'd actively fostered inclusive environments. Those leaders received bonuses and recognition. Employee satisfaction scores across all departments averaged 4.5 out of 5, the highest in company history. Turnover dropped to 11%, saving Apex $1.8 million annually in recruitment and training costs. Revenue was up 14% year-over-year. Clients specifically cited Apex's commitment to ethical culture as a reason for expanding contracts. The financial data was undeniable. Discrimination was expensive and dignity was profitable. Diana stood in the same lobby where she'd been humiliated, but everything had changed. The marble floors gleamed. New digital displays showcased employee achievements from all backgrounds. Security protocols had been completely revised. Dwayne Mitchell approached with a young woman in professional attire. "Mrs. Harper, this is Shanice Williams, our new business development associate. Today's her first day." Shanice extended her hand nervously. "Mrs. Harper, I applied to Apex twice before and got rejected. After your reforms, I was contacted within a week. Thank you for creating a company where people like me actually have opportunities." Diana shook her hand warmly. "Thank you for giving us a second chance. I'm excited to see what you accomplish here." As Shanice headed to orientation, Diana reflected on the journey. 6 months ago, she'd stood in this exact spot covered in Pepsi, wondering if real change was possible. Now she knew the answer. Richard joined her, tablet in hand. "The board just approved your proposal for the Apex Equity Fellowship. Full scholarships for 50 minority students pursuing business degrees, with guaranteed internships and hiring pathways." "Excellent. When do we launch?" "Next quarter. We're already partnering with 12 universities." Diana's phone buzzed. An email from the National Association of Corporate Directors requesting her to keynote their annual conference on workplace transformation. She was scheduled to speak in Atlanta before 3,000 business leaders about turning crisis into catalyst for change. But the most meaningful transformation wasn't in policies or demographics. It was in the daily experiences of employees who no longer feared being themselves at work. In the Chicago office, Jamal Stevens, a young black analyst, spoke up in a meeting without fear of being dismissed or ignored. His ideas were heard, evaluated on merit, and implemented. In Houston, Maria Gonzalez challenged her supervisor's decision without worrying about retaliation. The disagreement was handled professionally, and she was praised for her critical thinking. In Seattle, Jordan Park, a non-binary employee, used their correct pronouns without facing hostility or microaggressions. Their identity was respected as naturally as their work contributions. These weren't headline-making moments. They were quiet victories that happened 1,000 times a day across Apex's offices. This was the real measure of transformation. 1 year after the incident, Diana Harper returned to the same lobby at 9:17 a.m., carrying a leather portfolio. She wore a cream blazer, not the same one but deliberately similar. The lobby buzzed with purposeful activity. 73 employees and visitors moved through the space. Security protocols were professional and respectful. The culture had fundamentally shifted. Dwayne Mitchell greeted her with a warm smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Harper. Board meeting on 32. "Good morning, Dwayne." "Yes, thank you." Jennifer Kim emerged from the elevator bank. She'd been promoted again, now Vice President of Regional Operations, overseeing 6 divisions. "Diana, do you have the merger documents?" "Right here." Diana patted her portfolio. "On time and dry." They shared a knowing smile. As Diana rode the elevator to the 32nd floor, she reflected on the year's journey. Marcus Bennett's assault had been the catalyst, but the real work had been in sustained, systematic change. Apex had become a model for corporate accountability. 17 companies had requested consultation on implementing similar reforms. 3 business schools taught case studies on the transformation. The lobby incident had been featured in Harvard Business Review, Forbes, and the Wall Street Journal as an example of turning crisis into cultural revolution. But Diana's proudest achievement wasn't the articles or accolades. It was the 1,147 employees who now worked in an environment where their dignity was protected as fiercely as their productivity was valued. The board meeting began precisely at 9:30 a.m. Richard opened with financial results. Revenue up 22% year-over-year. Employee retention at 94%, highest in the industry. Client satisfaction scores at record levels. Our ethical culture is now a competitive advantage. Patricia Hayes added, "We've received 3,400 job applications this quarter, up 340% from last year. Top talent wants to work for companies that share their values." James Chin presented cost analysis. "Our investment in diversity and inclusion programs totaled $1.1 million this year. We saved $2.7 million in reduced turnover, avoided lawsuits, and increased productivity. 145% return on investment." The business case was irrefutable. "There's more," Monica Williams said. "Remember the 247 anonymous reports we received? 64 of those specifically mentioned feeling valued and respected for the first time in their careers. That's culture change we can measure." Diana listened to the presentations with quiet satisfaction. This was what justice looked like, not just punishment for bad actors but systematic transformation that prevented future harm. Her phone buzzed. A news alert: Marcus Bennett sentenced to 6 months probation for assault. Diana had pressed charges. Not for revenge but for accountability. The legal system needed to recognize that workplace assault had consequences beyond termination. Marcus's victim impact statement had been read in court. "I don't forgive Marcus Bennett, but I thank him for revealing problems that needed solving. His actions destroyed his career but saved countless others from similar abuse." After the meeting, Richard walked Diana to her car. "You know what the remarkable part is? A year ago, people thought you'd sue us into oblivion. Instead, you rebuilt us into something better." "Lawsuits would have extracted money," Diana replied. "I wanted to extract change." Mission accomplished. Diana paused before getting into her car. "Richard, in 12 months, I want our diversity metrics to match census demographics. In 24 months, I want us to be the industry leader in employee satisfaction. In 36 months, I want every competitor copying our model." Ambitious timeline. I didn't build a billion-dollar empire by setting modest goals. She drove away from Apex Corporate Solutions, the company she transformed from a discrimination liability into a dignity powerhouse. The woman who'd been humiliated with soda had become the architect of industry-wide change. Smash that subscribe button if you believe one person's courage can transform entire systems. If you stand with people like Diana who turn humiliation into revolution, join us. Only people who accept discrimination as normal won't subscribe. Choose your side. 5 years after the incident, Diana Harper stood before 5,000 business leaders at the National Diversity Summit in Chicago. The auditorium was packed. CEOs, executives, HR directors. Everyone wanted to hear from the woman who'd turned viral humiliation into systematic transformation. They saw a black woman, Diana began, and decided I didn't belong. What they didn't see was someone who'd spent 20 years building systems to ensure nobody else would face that humiliation. Behind her, the screen showed the original viral video. 8.9 million views had grown to 34 million over 5 years. It remained the most watched workplace discrimination incident in history. Marcus Bennett poured soda on me because culture had taught him he could. Because 9 discrimination complaints had been buried. Because revenue mattered more than respect. The audience sat in rapt attention. But his assault became a catalyst. Apex Corporate Solutions transformed from 73% white leadership to accurate demographic representation. Employee satisfaction jumped from 3.2 to 4.8 out of 5. Revenue increased 67% in 5 years. We proved that dignity is profitable. She clicked to the next slide showing Apex's current team. Diverse, thriving, successful. The real measure isn't what happened to Marcus. It's what happened to the 1,400 employees who now work without fear. The systems we built to protect them. The culture that values character as much as capability. Applause began to build. Transformation isn't about perfection. It's about commitment. 5 years ago, I stood in a lobby covered in Pepsi, wondering if change was possible. Today I know it is. But only when we choose courage over comfort, accountability over convenience, and dignity over everything else. The standing ovation lasted 4 minutes. After her speech, Diana's phone showed a text from Jennifer Kim, now Chief Operating Officer of Apex. Board just approved our expansion into international markets. Investors specifically cited our culture as key advantage. You changed everything. Diana smiled. The woman who'd been humiliated for not looking like she belonged had rebuilt the entire definition of belonging. Marcus Bennett's story ended very differently. 5 years of unemployment, failed relationships, and social isolation had reduced him to part-time work at his brother-in-law's warehouse. His name remained synonymous with workplace racism. But the employees he terrorized were thriving. Promoted. Respected. Valued. That was justice. Not just punishment for perpetrators, but restoration for victims and prevention for future generations. Diana Harper had turned one moment of humiliation into a movement that transformed how corporate America treats its employees. Have you witnessed workplace discrimination? Share your story in the comments. Your voice creates change. Your experience matters. These real-life stories remind us that dignity isn't negotiable. That one person's courage can dismantle systems of oppression. That character always costs more than silence, but it's worth every price. Subscribe to Blissful Whispers for more stories proving that quiet strength creates the loudest change. Stories of justice, accountability, and transformation that refuse to be silenced. Together we document injustice. Together we demand better. Together we build workplaces where everyone belongs. Thank you for watching. At Black Voices Uncut, we don't polish away the pain or water down the message. We tell it like it is because the truth deserves nothing less. If today's story spoke to you, click like, join the conversation in the comments, and subscribe so you'll be here for the next uncut voice that demands to be heard.